Good morning, second graders. Today I want to teach you another reading strategy that's going to help you with your comprehension. But before I do that, let's talk a little bit about this week's schedule. As usual, we'll be having office hours Monday through Thursday from 12:30 to 1:30. This is a chance for you to stop in, say hello to your friends, say hello to me, get any questions answered or help with the work that you're doing this week. And then on Friday, our all-class Zoom meeting from 12:30 to 1:30. So I look forward to seeing you then. So this week, we're going to work on how readers keep track of longer books. Almost third graders, as we are working primarily in chapter books. So we need to do the work of remembering how the problem and the solutions go and how the writer wants to let us know something and teach us a lesson. Same thing with nonfiction books. When we pick up those longer nonfiction books, there is a lot of information, a lot of facts. So I'm going to show you how you can better keep track of that using a couple different strategies. First, as you're reading, you need to be thinking in your mind, what's the most important part of this chapter? What I like to do when I'm thinking about that, and we'll reference our Pinky and Rex and the Just Right Pet book that we've been reading together the last couple of weeks. I like to go through each chapter and just make a note of what the most important part was. You can see on my chart, I listed some things for you to think about as you're doing this work. Think about the important facts, such as this book, this nonfiction book. There's so much in there that you need to think about, what is this chapter? What is this section really trying to tell me? What's the big idea? Another thing you can think about is major events, things that cause the characters to change, things that happen. Character changes again. We did a lot of this work right before we went on the break. And then thinking about the problem and solution in the forefront of your mind. What kinds of things are happening to add to the problem or to solve the problem? To help us keep track of that, we can use stop and jots and plunk them right in our book like we always have done. You can make note of feelings or feelings that change by the character. Again, the big events and the problems that happen or the solutions that happen. And then finally, when you're noticing you're getting off track, we always need to stop, reread and answer questions or solve the tricky parts that don't make sense to us. So we're going to take a look at that in a fiction text, Pinky and Rex and the Just Right Pet. And if you've been missing our Friday meetings and didn't get to hear this story, I'm just going to ask that you observe what I do in the first chapter. I'm going to reread that anyway and take note of what you can do in your book. So when I'm thinking about this work, I'll typically glance at the contents page again and just pre-mark the end of the chapter with a sticky note. That gives me a good reminder that I need to make sure I'm remembering what's happening and what the big ideas are. So in chapter 1, it's called The Family Meeting. I'm just going to very quickly reread this. Pinky and Rex were in the middle of playing their favorite board game when Pinky noticed the time. "Oh no," he said, jumping up. "I'm going to be late." Rex glanced at the clock on her bedroom wall. "But if you leave now," she said, "I win." "I know, but this is important. We're having a family meeting. We're going to decide about getting a pet." "A pet? You better hurry, Pinky." "What if your mom and dad are letting Amanda decide without you?" Pinky looked worried. "I don't think they'd do that. Would they?" he asked. Without waiting for an answer, he ran as quickly as he could to his house across the street. "It's about time," his little sister Amanda said, and their parents were sitting on either side of her at the kitchen table. "I'm sorry I'm late," Pinky said. "If you're more than 5 minutes late to a meeting, you lose your vote," said Amanda. "Forever." Pinky sat down. "Then you've already lost your vote," he said, "because you were late last time." Amanda glared at Pinky. "I was in the bathroom," she said. "You were singing in the bathroom. I heard you." "Not fair," said Amanda. "Anyone who listens outside bathroom doors loses their vote." "Does not. Forever. No way." "Amanda, Pinky," their mother said firmly, "enough. We have more important things to talk about, and Everyone gets to vote. We need to decide once and for all, their father said, what kind of pet we want. A dog, Pinky shouted. A cat, Amanda cried. Ugh, a problem, their mother said. How about a goldfish? Asked their father. So now I've come to my sticky note and I'm ready to make some notes about the ideas that I think are important in chapter 1. When we learn to summarize, we're not getting every little detail and every little piece of information when we retell. So I'm going back and just kind of skimming back through. At the beginning, Pinky and Rex were playing a game. Pinky had to go home. He didn't want to miss the meeting. And they talked about getting a pet. And already I can predict what the problem is going to be. In fact, it says it right here from the mom character. It says, a problem, their mother said. How about a goldfish, said Dad. That's already lending me some ideas about there's going to be some conflict between the characters about the things they want. One wants a cat, one wants a dog. To me, that seems like the most important part of chapter 1. So I'm going to write on my sticky note, problem, and then I'm going to write Pinky / dog, Amanda, his sister, / cat. So when I go back to review my sticky notes in the end to remember how the story went and what was important, I can put this in my mind right here. I'm also going to make the word vote because that kind of seemed like a big part of why the problem was coming in the first place. They had some arguing back and forth about if they should vote or not. Okay, so that's how we do it in a fiction book. Then kind of the same thinking when we do it in a nonfiction book. I haven't read this to you yet, and that's okay. This is called Reptiles and Amphibians. If you look ahead to your science for this week, you're going to be talking about and learning about classifying animals. That means putting animals into different like groups. So this one does that for you, and it's going to talk about all about the reptile and amphibian group. And the most common reptile people usually think about are snakes, and amphibians, frogs, but there are more in there. So I'm going to go ahead and look to the table of contents again. I'm going to figure out where the end of the first chapter, and this chapter is called What is a Reptile? And it looks like that ends on page 8. So I went ahead to page 8, or actually 9, and I stuck a sticky note there. But I'm already noticing something about the ends of this chapter. A lot of times in nonfiction books, and we've talked a lot about this at school, they'll give extras. The writer gives us extras of little things that we can do to help us remember. And I think this is one of those things. Right here, use your smart words, and they ask you questions. And then over here, fill in the blank. So this is actually not part of the information that I'm going to read about. So I'm going to go back to where the main text ends. So it looks like right here on page 7. So I'm going to go ahead and just mark that right there. So we're going to go ahead and now read the first chapter of What is a Reptile from this nonfiction book. What is a reptile? How is a snake like a turtle? How is an alligator like a lizard? They're all reptiles. Giant tortoise. Here's an extra smart word that talks about what reptile means. A cold-blooded animal with dry, scaly skin. And then this is called a coral snake. Crocodiles and tuatara lizards are reptiles too. These scaly animals might look slimy. In fact, their skin is dry. Most reptiles have scales. Most lay eggs too. All reptiles breathe air like you. Many reptiles have 4 legs. Which reptiles have no legs at all? And then here they give us a diagram of the parts and then tell us this is the Nile crocodile. So already, because I know I'm looking for important information, I'm already kind of keeping track in my mind what's important about this first part. And I think I'm going to be talking about this right here when I go to make my notes. Baby reptiles. Most reptiles lay eggs. This is a part of the reptile life cycle. The eggs protect the babies inside. Most reptiles lay their eggs in a nest or hole. Many reptiles, like snakes and lizards, leave. The eggs hatch on their own. They show us the life cycle of the alligator. Crocodiles and alligators are different. They guard their eggs day and night. Mother alligators stay with their babies. They help them find food. Babies leave their mothers when they're 2 or 3 years old. Armed for action. Like fish, many reptiles have scales. Scales protect the skin and keep reptiles from getting hurt. Scales keep the skin from getting dry. This helps reptiles live in hot places like the desert. Turtles and tortoises have hard shells. These are made of scales and bone. Sometimes reptiles shed their scales. Then they grow new scales. A snake sheds all of its scales at the same time. So now I've come to my sticky note and I'm ready to write down some important parts. Another thing that can help me with those important parts are using the headings. So when I go back to review what I've read, I'm just reading the headings right here. What's a reptile? So on my Stop and Jot, I'm just going to write the word reptile. And I'm going to think about what I learned most. Let's see. Scales. Eggs. Breathe air. So I'm going to write down here. They have scales. They lay eggs. And they breathe air. And then when I turn the page, I see the next heading about babies. So I'm just going to write down baby. They talk about laying eggs. They show the life cycle. I think the most important part that the writer wanted us to know is that they have a life cycle. They lay eggs. And the parents stay with their babies. Life cycle, eggs, and that's twice now I wrote down eggs. So that must be a big feature to help me remember the category of reptiles. Eggs, parents stay until the babies are 2 or 3. And then the last heading we read about was armed for action. Let's see. One of the key words in here was scales, because we see that they made this a different color, and they even did a smart word down below. So this part was all about their coverings. So I'm going to put coverings. I'm not going to put scales because they did teach us about how turtles and tortoises have that shell. So that's a little bit different. Coverings are for protection. And skin doesn't get dry. Okay. So today and every day as you're reading, get out those sticky notes, and I want you to practice keeping track of your longer books and remembering what's important about what you read. This week for math, you're going to be doing some lessons on time and money, so that'll be a nice little change from what you have been doing. And then finally, our quote for this week says, make yourself proud. What can you do this week that you can be proud of? So much of the work that we're doing this week can be done on your own. You don't necessarily need mom and dad to help you. Obviously, I want you to reach out to your parents for help if you need it, but give it a try. See how independent you can be this week and make yourself proud. I look forward to seeing you through office hours this week and our all-class meeting on Friday. Take care.